Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. We are going to get started in a few moments. Thanks so much for joining us. We're just waiting for people to jump on here. Nice to see you all. Hope everybody's having a good, what is it, Wednesday? Good Wednesday so far. I'll give people a few minutes here. And as you are getting started, I have a quick little introduction question for you. So let me go ahead and reshare my screen here. Okay, so if you want to say a quick hello in the chat, let us know your name, where you're joining from, and have you hosted or are you planning to host a Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day celebration? If you could tell us what it is that you're planning or thinking about, or maybe something about one of your past celebrations, we would love to hear what you are planning for this upcoming November. So feel free to say hello, drop that in the chat as people join, and we will get started in a few minutes. So I see South Carolina, people from South Carolina are with us, some Texas folks in our chat. Nice to see you all. Memphis, North Carolina. And again, let us know what you're planning for your Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day celebration. If you have something in mind that you are working on, please let us know. And if you are looking for ideas today, we'll be sharing plenty throughout the presentation. So if you're still figuring out what you might want to work on, just listen out for some interesting ideas and some cool tips around how to celebrate Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. So let's see what we have here. Partnering with schools, absolutely. Making sure that we have our school partners, involved. A lot of people who are doing presentations for the first time, which is great. We love to see our first time Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day participants. So that's awesome. Coordinating with the library. Libraries are great partners for Safe Routes projects. So incorporating them into your event, definitely a great idea. So continue to add those examples into the chat box. The chat box is open throughout the presentation. So if you have other, ideas that come to mind, feel free to continue putting those into the chat box. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started here. Again, thanks so much for joining us. My name is Corey Johnson. I'm our Program and Engagement Manager here at the Safe Routes Partnership. For those of you who might not know us, we're a national organization who works to advance safe walking, biking, and rolling, both to schools, but also destinations like grocery stores, libraries, parks, those everyday destinations, and really thinking about improving people's overall health and well-being. So that's a bit about our work. I am based in Baltimore, Maryland. We have a lovely fall-like day that I know won't last, so I'm trying to, hold on to it for as long as I can. But I'm happy to be here with you all today. We'll also have a wonderful guest speaker, Caitlin Henley from Tacoma, Washington, to share a bit about her Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day celebration. And she will join us a bit later and talk about a great project that she did last year in Tacoma to celebrate the event. So it'll be the two of us who will be taking care of you all today. A few housekeeping slides before I jump in. The webinar is being recorded, so if you have to jump off early or want to share with colleagues, there will be a recording available. I'm also sharing a bunch of different resources, and they're all linked in the slide deck. So if there's like a video that I show or something else that you want to pass along to somebody else or access, that'll be available in a PDF afterwards. So I'll make sure that that gets sent out to you. And we also encourage you to put your questions in the Q&A box and your comments in the chat, just so that we can make sure that we can pull out the questions and have enough time to answer them at the end. So ideas and, comments in the chat box and your questions in the Q&A box. And one final reminder, I'm sure that you all have heard that we are having our in-person Safe Routes to School conference this October in Fort Collins. If you haven't grabbed your ticket yet, there's still time. So please make sure that you join us if you're able to. We'd love to see you, and we're excited to gather in person again since it's been a little while. So we're looking forward to that. Okay, so thank you all so much for sharing information in the chat box, and we're going to go ahead and get started. And I know that there were a few like blanks screens that were popping up on my box. Hopefully that's taken care of, but if it's not, we'll try to work on it throughout the presentation. So sorry for that. It's some of our little Zoom intricacies that we're dealing with today, but I appreciate you all and your patience with that. Okay, so I wanted to get started by first talking about Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day, which is why we're all here and gathered today. So, what it is, why we celebrate it, some of the history behind the event. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day, it's typically celebrated every November 14th, and it honors the living legacy of civil rights activist Ruby Bridges. And it's really about encouraging young people to make a change in their community, to be positive change makers, and to also spark some important conversations around youth activism, anti-racism, and anti-bullying. So that's kind of the goal of what Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day is all about. And for those of you who might not be familiar with Ruby Bridges and her story, Ruby Bridges is a part of our US's civil rights history. So following the desegregation of schools via Brown versus Board of Ed in 1954, schools started to integrate. And in 1960, Ruby Bridges, who was 6 at the time, integrated an all-white elementary school in New Orleans. And she was met by a mob of angry protesters. And of course, there are these iconic images of, Ruby walking into school as a young 6-year-old, confronting a lot of hate and aggression. But her courage that day really made her a civil rights icon. And, her legacy lives on. She's still out and about and, active, sharing her story and inspiring other people to take action in their communities. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the history of Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day and how this all started. So it actually started with a group of young people. 5th grade students in South San Francisco learned about Ruby Bridges in school and decided that they wanted to have a day to honor her. And so they partnered with their local leaders and the San Mateo County Safe Routes to School program to start a Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. So the first celebration was in 2018, and again, it was a group of students who decided they wanted to pair, Walk to School Day with a celebration about Ruby Bridges, and so they kind of teamed up to host this first celebration. And then in I think it was 2021, the California State Senate passed a Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day resolution, officially recognizing Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day as an event that's celebrated every November. So that's a little bit of information about Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day and the history of this event. And I have a short video clip here that hopefully will play and that you all can hear, that talks a bit more about the history of Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day.
Sorry, I don't think we're hearing the audio here.
Okay, one sec.
That's right, birthday, baby.
All right, let me share this again, everybody. Okay. You let me know if the audio is working.
No audio.
Still no audio?
No audio.
All right, what we can do is drop the link to the video in the chat, but it basically shows the students who've started Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day talking about Ruby and her, and her legacy and the history behind, behind why they wanted to start this event. Sorry, the video is not working. It's really cool. There's like a really cute song that goes with it that talks all about Ruby Bridges and her legacy and walking to school. So we'll drop it in the chat. It's also linked in the presentation in case, you want to view it afterwards. And this is a video that was created in collaboration with San Mateo County Safe Routes to School. So definitely check that out afterwards. If I can get it to work later on, I will definitely make sure that I can share that with you all. So moving on to another big reason why we're here is that we are really excited this year to be able to offer Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day mini grants. And so you all probably been getting our e-newsletters, seeing things on social media, but basically we're really excited about growing the Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day movement and getting more schools and more students involved in this wonderful day. And so we are, for the first time, offering Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day mini grants to support celebrations that you all will hopefully lead in November. And the grant application is online. We'll also drop it in the chat box for you if you haven't seen it. And this is an opportunity for you all to get a little boost of funding to support whatever celebration you have coming up. And during the webinar, I'll share some ideas around, what you can use that grant money for. So our the goal of Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day, again, is to, promote constructive dialogue and conversations about activism, racism, and anti-bullying, and also think about how young people can make a change in their own communities, like how Ruby actually changed her community. We're awarding grants in two amounts, $500 for people who might be reaching less than 400 students in their celebration, and $1,000 for celebrations that reach over 400 students. The money can also be split between different schools. So for example, if you have 3 schools that you're working with and you'll reach 1,200 students, you're eligible to apply for a $1,000 grant because your overall reach is over 400 students. We had a few questions coming in about eligibility when it comes to the funding allotments. So if you have other questions about funding, again, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to, walk you through that process, as well. As far as who's eligible to apply for funding, local governments, if you're from a local school district, nonprofits that have 501c3 status, even if there's an individual or PTAs are also welcome to apply. It's open to Safe Routes programs, whether you're located at a city, a school, a district, county, regional entities. We also welcome our, nonprofit partners to apply, and other community partners. So if it's a library or a community group, we're really trying to make sure that everybody has an ability to, access this funding if you're, if you're interested in participating in having a celebration in the next few months. So as far as funding ideas, what can you use this money for? All kinds of things, whether it's incentives or giveaways. You can use the funding to print posters, handouts, banners. We have some people who, students make their own banners or handouts. Supplies to do a story walk. Kaylin's going to talk a bit about her story walk in Tacoma in a little bit. Stipends for our volunteers and people who help us organize. Oftentimes, it's hard to get funding for volunteer stipends, but you could use the money to, pay volunteers for their time. Books, there are some great books about Ruby Bridges, so incorporating some literacy elements into your celebration, paying for a guest speaker to come and present and talk about Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day, or maybe it's local activist in, your community who can talk about some of the work that they're doing. Educational workshops or activities, art, contest, t-shirts, badges. Food is always a big one. People like to, have a little bit of food to celebrate the event. So all of these ideas are eligible when it comes to the grant funding. And again, if you have questions about eligibility, you're not sure if something is is eligible or not, please do feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to, to kind of walk through what some of the funding ideas are if you're not quite sure what falls into the eligible category or not. So as far as planning your celebration, and what that looks like, we suggest first registering your celebration with the Ruby Bridges Foundation. There should be a link in the chat that'll show you where you can, officially sign up and get registered to participate. We also have our guide that we put on our website that'll help you kind of get started organizing your Walk to School Day celebration. So we have some, different ideas, strategies for how to get started planning your celebration. And then just going through a few steps, figuring out why you're doing this event, connecting with some partners, really planning purposefully, and then of course, celebrating and sharing what it is that you do. And so when thinking about, why you're doing this in the first place, I think a question is thinking about, how you want to make a change in your community and how young people can make a change in their community. So thinking about how Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day, it's about elevating these larger conversations around, improving your community and making change, and conversations around anti-racism, anti-bullying, and activism. Having some of those conversations either with yourself or your team or some of the young people that you're working with could be a good way to kind of get started thinking about the why of this event. And also asking some questions of students about what they might want to see change in their community as a result of Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. What are those issues that they care about? What do they want to work on and improve? And even not only within their community, but within their school. How can they make their school a better place? What are some things that they might want to see, changed in their classroom, or in their pod, or in their team? The Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day Foundation, the Ruby Bridges Foundation also has a great day of dialogue guide that gives you some more questions and ideas about how to have these conversations with young people about some topics that can be pretty big and heavy. What do those conversations look like? What are the questions we should be asking? How can we have these conversations in a really meaningful and impactful way? So I definitely encourage you all to check out the Day of Dialogue guide as well as you're planning your celebration. And of course, partnering up, with your teachers, librarians, local media, elected officials. Sometimes artists are involved and they might make some artwork or a poster for your event. Inviting out elected officials, having artists come, community organizations, local historians. So, who are those core partners who can really be a part of your celebration? And so I wanted to share a few ideas of how a few examples of how different communities have celebrated Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day in the past. And again, all these links I'm talking about are linked in the slide deck. I know that our audio is not working, so some of the videos I might have to share it with you afterwards and you can view on your own time, but I do want to uplift some of these great examples before I pass things over to Kaylin. So the first one is issuing a Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day proclamation. And so this is really an opportunity to show support from elected officials and local leaders about why they support and celebrate Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. It can also increase public buy-in, builds awareness, improve sustainability, and kind of make things like official. So it's nice to kind of have that, that public show of support when it comes to your local leaders. So there are a bunch of communities that have done this. Like I mentioned, California, they issued their proclamation in 2021. New Jersey just passed a Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day proclamation. I don't know if any people on the chat have had, your communities issue Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day proclamations, but that's one way to, again, kind of like show that support from your elected officials and local leaders, and really make, this day a core part of the community. And again, I'll share that link to, there's a cute little clip from New Jersey and some of their elected officials talking about declaring November 14th as Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day in the state of New Jersey. So people make a big deal out of it and, have an official ceremony and create some cool photos and videos. So definitely worth a look when I share that out later. The next one, contacting your local media to run a news story. This is a great opportunity to really highlight not only Ruby Ridges Walk to School Day, but also the importance of walking and biking to school. Local news, at least the ones that I've worked with, always love to come and, see what people are working on and share a feel-good news story. And so again, we have some great examples of how local news has been involved in celebrating and sharing Ruby Ridges Walk to School Day celebrations. It also helps give neighbors a heads up. There's this example that I have here from Chandler, Arizona. As part of their broadcast, they were out like super early during the day, in the morning, and they were telling neighbors like, hey, reminder, it's Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. There might be some different, traffic patterns or flows, just letting you all, know before you head out to work that there are going to be a lot of kids walking and biking today, so be prepared. So even just like, some of those key messages from the community can be really helpful. If you haven't reached out to local media yet, or you're not really sure what that looks like, there's a great tip sheet that a local content creator, her name is Deb Stanley. She's awesome, out of Denver. She put together this really helpful tip about how to reach out to local media. Who do you contact? What do you do? What do you say? Deb has covered Safe Routes projects in Denver for a long time, and so she knows a lot about how to, work with local news reporters to capture these events. So again, I'll make sure that I share that out afterwards. And it's linked in the presentation here so you all know how to contact your local news media if that's something that you're interested in. Next one is creating a puzzle or a game, kind of making this fun. So again, it's Ruby Ridges Walk to School Day. It's a celebration. So of course we're talking about changes to our community and how to be good to one another. And we can also do that in a really in a really fun way. So Oregon Safe Routes to School created this really cool Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day bingo card. And let me see if I can share this with you all. Give me one second. So examples like this can be a great way to, just add a bit of fun to the day as well. So this is the Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day bingo card. I hope you all can see this. And so, this is, again, like a little activity that students can do as they're, going about their day. It's in English and Spanish. And of course, each little box has, some sort of activity to remind students about what they can do to celebrate Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. So again, if you're applying for grant funding, you might use that money to, print out your bingo cards. That's an eligible use of, use of funds. But this is kind of like a cool, idea and activity for kids as they're, having their celebrations. There's also this really great group called Solving Fun out of Palo Alto, California, that's created these really wonderful Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day activity book in collaboration with San Mateo County Safe Routes to School. And so they have this activity book that's all about Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day, and also includes some really great tips about walking and biking in your community. This one is also in English and Spanish. These are available to order on their website. So again, if you're thinking about how to use grant funds, perhaps like purchasing some sort of activity book, could be another way to elevate your Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day celebration. So I wanted to point those two out. And the last one that's also really fun is, again, San Mateo County did, they were inspired by a virtual Harry Potter escape room that was created through a library, and kind of took that and adapted it and made it into a Ruby Bridges virtual walk through history. And so it's kind of like a digital escape room. This is from a few years ago, but it's still up and in use. And so it's kind of like a walk through history with Ruby Bridges, and also includes some really cool walk and bike safety tips as well. So these are just like a few, creative ideas you're thinking about what your celebration will look like, who will be involved, what types of activities you can do. And again, we'll make sure we share all these out at the end, but just to give you some ideas about what these activities can look like. So those are some of my favorites there. All right, then I have a few more, and I will hand things over to Kaylin to talk a bit about Tacoma. Another strategy, of course, is just organizing a school-wide celebration. So again, there's another great clip that I'll share with you all out of Salt Lake City, Utah, where they had like a full-on school celebrations. There was breakfast, there was a librarian doing a Ruby Bridges read aloud, elected officials were there, teachers, PTA, local media. So it's a really good example of how all the different partners can be involved. So there's a library piece, there's an elected officials piece, there's students talking about Ruby Bridges and why she's important. There's breakfast, there's local media walking along with students. So if you want to celebrate, as a whole school, there are opportunities to do that too. And again, the grant funding can go towards funding, maybe that's buying breakfast, or maybe that's buying books for the read aloud. Maybe that's printing maps of your walking route. All of those are eligible under the grant funding. And then lastly, there's a really great example out of Nashville. Walk Bike Nashville worked with a local school, and their strategy was kind of honoring their local history and advocating for change. So Nashville, they kind of explored their own history of school segregation and integration, and invited some community members who had been a part of integrating schools in Nashville to come and be a part of their celebration. They also had, neighbors and community elders. They had the Tennessee Titans mascot come out. I think they had a, band come out to play. Students were walking along the route. And they also elevated traffic safety concerns in their communities. There was a young person who was killed either walking or riding her bike. And so they also, kind of elevated that moment and really talked about ways to improve traffic safety as a part of their celebration, and really highlighted both inequities when it comes to education and transportation. So they have a really great blog post on their website. Again, I'll link to it for you all. But they had a really, kind of like meaningful and thoughtful framework around their celebration. So those are just a few that I wanted to uplift here, and hopefully you all kind of have some ideas, get the ideas flowing. And now I'm going to turn it over to Kaylin from Tacoma, Washington, to talk a bit about her project and how she was able to celebrate Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day through a story walk. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment, and I'm going to have Kaylin come on and join us. And
thank you. I think Dave is just trying to get me to have permissions to share screen.
sure.
As we do this kind of pivot.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, everything was working great before it just got, presentation anxiety, our computers here.
Or you might need to click the button there for Kaylin to be able to share.
You should be good to go.
Thank you. All right. Great. So I think you should be able to see my screen, but please let me know. Oops, if not, let me move that chat box. There we go. All right, so hello. I'm really grateful I get to share with you all today about Tacoma's first ever Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. We hosted this just last year, and I feel really grateful for the opportunity to share because I feel like our event was relatively simple, and it's one of like a many amazing cool events that have been happening across the country. And I've gotten to learn so much from you all in the Google group about what you all have been doing, from these ideas Corey's put on or compiled for all of us. And also just a huge shout out to Simcoe and the students in South San Francisco for starting Ruby Bridges and spreading awareness across the country and partnering with Ruby Bridges herself. It's been great to see her videos as well. I know it was in 2019 at the National Safe Routes to School conference that I learned from Teresa and Vanessa of Simcoe about this incredible partnership with students to create this national event. So I'm going to talk to you about this relatively simple event that we planned, what actually happened, and what we heard back, and kind of our lessons along the way. But first, I want to share why Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day is important to us at the City of Tacoma and our partners. Corey shared that slide with lots of reasons why and like prompts to get us thinking about why is this this national event important for us. And at the City of Tacoma, we have Resolution 40622, and that is that our city is committed to becoming an anti-racist organization. And to do that, like the very first step is recognizing that all of our processes in government are impacted by systemic racism, and that existing systems have not adequately served everyone in our community. Particularly, the city's systems haven't adequately served the needs of our Black community and the members of other community, pardon me, the other community members of the global majority. So I think like that's from our city standpoint. While that might not resonate with you or your community, that's like really our baseline of where we're starting from. And second, another reason, maybe your point number one doesn't resonate with you, but another reason is many students in Tacoma and elsewhere across our country they already know about, they feel, they live, or they see unfairness in our communities. And many great school leaders and school staff are making space and supporting students in talking about racism and talking about bullying, and also talking about how do we as students be the positive change that we want to see in our own schools, right? And so I see Safe Routes to School efforts, such as Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day, as one way to create more space, to acknowledge historical harm, and to support youth, give them another space to talk about, to process, to be in community, to identify change, and to be the change that they want to see. And so lastly, or reason number three is, if maybe these other two reasons didn't resonate with you or may not resonate with your community, I think we can all get behind supporting students to identify, to share out, and to be part of positive change that they want to see and be in their communities. At the core of Ruby's message, the most distilled version of her message is I hear her calling on students to be that positive change or positive change maker when something is unjust or they see something's unfair that's rooted in hate. And I see that in the book, I Am Ruby Bridges. Sorry, it's blurry. From her 6-year-old perspective of what she's calling on us to do. So this is actually, you can see, the photo shows the last yard sign of our story walk, and I'll get into that. So what did we actually plan for our relatively simple event? So we planned a walk into school from 2 blocks away along a park. And the walk was starting with speeches from our elected officials. And this is actually a location where we've been working with the school to encourage families who may not walk to school or bike to school or use the bus, but to park further away and walk in. It's like an amazing setup with a park right nearby. Along this walking route, we have a story walk, and we plan to do a reading of Ruby Bridges and Nicholas Smith's book, I Am Ruby Bridges, the one that I just held up. And then along this walk as well, our plan was to encourage students to talk with the elected leaders present about what changes they wanted to see in their community. So in terms of messaging, we framed the event around Ruby Bridges' story and really centering her story from the book, and how she writes it, and her universal call to students to be change makers. So essentially, we're celebrating this incredibly brave Black student who experienced a lot of hurt and confusion, pardon me, as the first student to do this really hard thing. And she lived through this hard thing and has a really important message for us. So that was our framing. So we, youth and adults, we together can acknowledge harm in our communities and be part of talking about it and creating change. So for the logistics of the story walk, we plan to install the story walk at the adjacent park, like I had mentioned. But just to kind of heads up for you all, if this is something you might need to consider, to do that on park property or any property that wasn't, city owned, perhaps with your school, we needed a special use permit. So we applied for our special use permit. And then to use the book's pages, I reached out to the Ruby Bridges Foundation and the Scholastics legal permissions team. So I know I already saw some comments about how do you get the files for the book? My understanding, based on so many insights from the Safe Routes to School Google group was that we need the publisher's permission. So I reached out to permissions@scholastic.com, describing the event and how I wanted to use the pages of the book. I created 21 yard signs from the first page of the book to the last, and then that final yard sign I pointed out earlier with Ruby's changemaker prompts. And I printed those out on yard sign material, drilled little holes in them, and mounted them to these heavy-duty marketing sign holders that you can see here in this image of the first yard sign, and I numbered them. And we used these ones instead of H stakes. I mean, you can use whatever suits your community best, but just because they're really sturdy, they're reusable, and also it reduced the likelihood of theft. And then we installed these by hammering them down into the ground with a rubber mallet. It was very cold that morning, although very beautiful. And so that was took some extra muscle to definitely get them into that cold ground. And then all these materials together were about $860. And we had a grant thanks to the Washington Traffic Safety Commission to fund that work. So here's a quick close-up on how we laid them out. So you'll see the first yard sign here, and then you'll see the path as we turn the camera. We had them actually originally printed front and back, so you could read the book in the correct direction or like page ordered, regardless of which way you were walking on the path. However, something you may learn, like we learned in getting our special use permit to install these, is that they required us to stake them along parallel to the path, just a few inches within the edge of the path. So just stipulations that you may encounter. So we couldn't install them perpendicular. Oops. Okay, so that's how we set it all up, but what actually happened? So we planned the speeches, a story walk, and talking with the elected officials. So our school board president came and a city council member kicked us off with speeches about standing up to hate, being the first to do or be something, and how that may feel scary. So the Councilmember Bushnell, is our first Cambodian American council member, and talking about his experience. And also, how do we work towards a better world? And those speeches were great. And then we split up to some smaller groups to stagger the story walk. So with the story walk, here's some lessons learned starting. Some students got to practice their reading skills, and some students wanted to book it to school along the path. So overall, we ended up being quite time crunched and got through about the first 6 pages of the book before we really needed to get students onto campus. So time management was a big part of our event. And I see some comments in the chat about, yeah, driving stakes. You might want to just think about some alternatives to driving any stakes into a park or even school property or facility, checking with your school facilities team. Okay, so even though we were a little time crunched along the walk, some students actually did really want to engage with our elected officials and to talk about, like, what did they see that was hurtful or discriminatory in their community, whether they're seeing it or they're living it, right? So a few students talked about houselessness in our community and how they really wanted to see people treated with more respect, including not having to live on the streets. And our council member who was there and talking with students about the issues that they were bringing up also came back and reported back to city council at large in his weekly report out. And once we arrived at school, we have our traditional celebration station that's custom of all of our walk and roll to school days, with stickers, a small snack, and a tally poster of for students to mark how did they get to school that day. And that's to ensure that all students, whether they were able to participate or not, they get to at least participate in a celebration. And then we also had students sign the big Ruby Bridges, the large poster that the foundation sent out last year for registered schools. And so that all students got to sign and learn about what that day was if they hadn't participated or heard about it in the prior promotions. And that signed poster was then hung back on the wall in the school. So for some brief lessons learned, there is a lot there's some things that didn't happen the way we planned. So the biggest, of course, was that time crunch. We ran out of time to read the whole story and to talk between the pages and after we ended. And so that was a big, the generous time allocation that I had planned out really ended up being much more crunched with speeches and gathering and coordinating. So that was a good lesson learned. Um, but then a positive outcome actually of that lesson was that the PE teacher, Mr. Eric Dean, who's phenomenal, you can see him in the middle here of this photo, he used the story walk as a warm-up in PE for that week so that students would go and take laps and read the story and then take running laps as well around the park. I also had floated the idea of like additional in-class learnings and discussions, providing the resources that Corey has already mentioned, but that are on the Ruby Bridges Foundation website. But I also knew that this school was really at capacity. And so making more space for that dialogue that Ruby Bridges encourages, that's really a goal that I'm moving forward in my next iteration. And I appreciate Corey bringing up like trying to plan as intentionally as possible to have these conversations. And then lastly, we left the installation up for about 2 weeks, and really only one of the signs was damaged, and it was very minor. And as I was taking them down, there were people in the community doing laps around the park. And they were talking about how they really loved it. They wanted to see more of it. They wanted to stay up longer. And so it was just a great way to activate a park that community members have expressed concern over certain behaviors. And then lastly, overall, like everything in Safe Routes to School, it just takes lots of incredible partners that I got to work with, from the whole child team with the school district, the school admin, and then I had staff. I saw in the comments someone saying, make sure to invite your engineers, like your traffic engineers. So we had folks from our project management and delivery team working on construction projects nearby, to a traffic signal engineer, to our elected officials. So it was a great spread. And someone also from our Office of Equity and Human Rights too. So really incredible event to pull together lots of people to talk about Ruby Bridges and to integrate walking to school and activating a community space. So thank you so much for the opportunity to share this relatively simple event that I learned a lot about. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing from you all about any of your tips and how I can continue to improve.
Thanks so much, Kaylin. I was so excited to share this project. I saw it kind of like back when you did it, I was on your Facebook page and was like, oh, this is so cool. And I've shared like little bits of it in previous webinars. And so I love just being able to kind of hear the fuller story of how this came about and how you put it together. And like you're just saying, it's a simple project, and simple can still be really impactful. And, those of you who might be planning celebrations or figuring out how to get started, it can start with something simple. Like some of the, whole school celebrations where there's, like lots going on. We're not expecting everybody to kind of start in that spot, and just start where, like where it makes sense for you. I also, I dropped a few links in the chat just about like story walks in general. So story walk is, a project was created by librarians. It's kind of like taken off, and they're popping up across the country, and there are lots of different ways you can install them. I think some people are asking questions about like, putting stakes in the ground, and that might not be okay in some different locations. So I've seen communities put story walks in store windows, in library windows, hanging the pictures on gates or on a wall. So there are lots of ways to get creative as far as actually installing your story walk and thinking about what it'll, like what it'll look like. So definitely think about, what makes the most sense for your community. So I want to make sure we have enough time for questions before I wrap up. So Kaylin, if you want to stick on with me, I have a few questions for you about your story walk, and then just some general questions about celebrating Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. So someone was curious if you were able to include students who were you able to include students who live closer to the school than the start point in the walk? So I guess how did you include students who are kind of, spread out across a neighborhood or community? How can you make sure that they're all able to participate in program activities?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I'm always learning, right? We're always trying to expand and grow. So for this school, the way that they've really liked to partner with me is um, to have this meeting point on this other side of the park. And we promote it. We give out those half pages, sheets that you saw on the screen. I can pull that back up if you like. And we I think the thing that stands out to me the most is that oftentimes that excludes students who are riding the bus. And so that's why we always have that celebration station on school campus, so that students can participate regardless of how they get to school. Sorry, it's taken me a little bit to, oh, here we go. But these are promoted. I work with for all of our walk and roll to school days and for Ruby Bridges, like I work with the school admin or a point person within the school to review our flyers, and then I have them printed with grant funds and then distributed through each teacher's mailbox. Like I cut them up into the class sizes, and then those go home. And then we also do in language promotions digitally through the school. So that's to reach as far as we can, as many families as we can. And we also understand it's not going to be feasible for many families to change if they rely on the bus, right? That's not going to be necessarily possible. That's one thing that was really cool about including PE. Actually, a nice spin on a lesson learned was then that students who might not get to participate in the actual walk still got to read and engage with the story walk through PE.
Awesome, thank you. And Kaylin, can we share out the examples of these posts? I think you sent me your sample posters, so I can share those out afterwards if you're thinking about putting your own poster together and what it looks like. I can share Kaylin's examples as well. We had another question kind of related to like that school celebration station about, thinking about communities, like rural communities or communities where students are spread out across, a large county where busing is a must and there are a limited amount of children that can walk. So it seemed like, you created a, at school, or was it at school or along the route, or in at school celebration station. That is a way for students to still, be engaged in Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. Somebody emailed me a few days ago asking about, they're in a community where there aren't a lot of sidewalks and they wanted to know if they could organize a walk around their track. And I said, sure, you can have, a Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day where students walk around their track. And maybe one of the issues that's being elevated is lack of sidewalks in the community. And thinking about how students want to, change their community and change the world, maybe or improve their school. Maybe that's an opportunity to talk about, infrastructure and the engineering part of making community change. So that's a good idea. I like the in-school celebration ideas too, or on-campus celebrations too. Who is the best person in a school district to reach out to partner with to partner with to support a Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day celebration? Sadly, there is no Safe Routes to School contact. This person is in Indiana. So I know, Kaylin, you worked with teachers. You mentioned, the PE teacher, local elected officials, your local engineer. I think somebody said invite the engineer out. Your local library. Those of you who have been on my webinars know I will talk about partnerships with libraries all day, every day. Local libraries are great supporters of Safe Routes programs. If you're thinking about the literacy piece and the Ruby Bridges books, they could be some great Safe Routes champions as well. And a lot have been involved in these Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day celebrations. So I definitely encourage you to reach out to, your local school. Library is also a great opportunity.
May I add, Corey? Is that okay?
Yeah. Yes,
So
please do.
about when I tried to do Ruby Bridges, host it 2 years ago, and but I just wanted to start the conversation at least if we weren't going to host an actual event. And the best avenue for me to start those conversations was through what we call the whole child department. I know not all districts have that, but perhaps you have a social emotional learning team or a school social work group or any sort of folks who are really well equipped to or helping have conversations around bullying and hate and like actually positive change and behavior change in that way could also be another avenue to consider.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. Community liaisons, people have community liaisons, community and schools coordinators. So yeah, I think anybody like that would be another good suggestion. Thanks, Kaylin. Another question, how much time from start to finish would you like to have ideally for an event like this? So Kaylin, your celebration was the day, right? Like the actual parade and story walk, correct?
Yeah, so our story walk, we had budgeted about 35 minutes for the whole story walk. It's like a little tricky about how much can you ask families to show up ahead of time. I think we really should have had a full hour, and that would give us more cushion for the celebration station on campus and then getting students into class. But that's up to you and and the school you're working with, right? That's really the key is how do they feel like their families would show based on the time.
Yeah, and again, like it doesn't have to be a whole, school-wide event. It could be something, it could be small. It could be a walk around the track and a conversation with one classroom. So, again, kind of thinking about your partners and your planning process and what works best for your school and students. I think you can, kind of follow their lead as far as planning this. And then one final question that's actually really important that I want to get to before I wrap up. Thinking about hosting an event like this in places where, there might be book banning or, conversations about anti-racism or anti-bullying might not be something that's supported by, local leaders or the school. How can you incorporate, Ruby Ridge's Walk to School Day in some of these communities? I think that, Kaylin, kind of your phrasing about, talking about how students want to improve their school or improve their community, and, kind of thinking about thinking about students as people who can, make positive changes and just want to do some great things for their school or their community. I think that there are some ways that you can kind of frame the opportunity in, in a way that might not hit some of those, hot button issues, but that still reflect the spirit of Ruby Ridge's Walk to School Day, which is about improving our communities, looking out for one another, treating each other kindly, and just, doing our part to make our community and our world a better place. So I would kind of, start there and Ruby Bridges might be an example. There might be other local, leaders or heroes in the community who you might want to position her alongside and have a celebration that's Ruby Bridges and a few other, like local heroes. So I think that there are some ways that we can, frame this to be inclusive and make sure that everybody can participate. If anybody else has ideas though, or you want to brainstorm with me ever, feel free to, reach out. And I think that's important conversation to have. So thanks for elevating that. All right, so we are going to wrap up. I have a few final slides, and Dave is going to go ahead and share my slide deck since my screen is not working. Again, thanks so much, Kaylin, for your wonderful example, your expertise, your enthusiasm. I'm such a fan of that project, and I'm just so excited that everybody gets to see the Ruby Bridges Story Walk. So thanks for that. So a few final tips, just thinking about, you do your celebration and it's awesome. And how do we really sustain this movement? So, we hope that, first of all, that you all apply for a Ruby Ridge's Walk to School Day mini grant and get some, funds to support your celebration. And then beyond that, we hope that you, have your celebration and, share with us. So share your pictures, share your videos, share with community partners, invite that local media out to come and do a story. And let's continue to spread the word and grow this movement, whether that's on social media, local news, videos, photos. We love to share it out with our network. So please let us in on your celebration since we can't be everywhere. Some of our state and regional programs have also created Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day, web pages with information about, how to start a program, some downloadable resources. So those of you who might be working more on the state or regional level, think about, how you can elevate this, on your own social media, on your web pages. And also just creating opportunities for kids to talk about what's important to them, not only on Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day, but throughout the year. So whether it's, during a, bike skills course, or if you're doing walk audits, or, the traditional walk and roll to school day in October, how can we keep having these conversations about changing our community and being kind to one another? Some people have organized spin-off celebrations, like, organizing Walk to School Day event for another local hero. That's great. So maybe Ruby Bridges is in November, and then somebody else is in the spring. So let's keep this movement going. And then just adding this event to your annual program calendar. So we all know that, Walk and Roll to School Day is every October, around the same time. Make sure that you mark your calendars in November for Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day, and have this be, a regular part of your Safe Routes to School program. So just a few ideas as you think about your celebration, and just one last reminder about the mini grants. The applications are open through September 13th at 11:59 Pacific. So make sure that you get those applications in. We also have that Getting Started guide, which we have on our website. So again, if you're thinking about what you want to do, need some ideas, need some inspiration, feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to take a look at that guide. Hopefully we shared some good examples of celebrations today. Again, all of those little video clips and resource links, they're linked in the slide deck. So if you want to see, again, if you want to hear the Ruby Bridges song, or hear how local media captured different events, please take a look at those video clips. Those are really instructive and informative and inspiring. You're always welcome to reach out to me if you have questions. Several of you have already reached out asking about different ideas and what's eligible and what's not. I'm always here to help. And we also have our Safe Routes to School Google group. For those of you, who might want to do some creative crowdsourcing on our Google group, feel free to reach out there as well. If you're not a part of that group and you want to be added to the list, you can email Christina. Her email address is right here, and just include the email address that you want to use to sign up for the group. And that's a nice opportunity for you all to chat with other Safe Routes people. I remember, Kaylin, when you did your story walk, I think you dropped a bunch of information about it in the Google group, and that was really helpful. So it's a nice way to kind of brainstorm together and continue these conversations. So that is all that I have on my end. I don't think we have any additional questions in the chat, but we do hope that you all, apply for a mini grant if you're interested, plan a celebration this year. Please share your celebrations with us. We would love to see what you all are up to, and let's continue to grow the Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day movement. And special shout out to Teresa Valles Kelly and your wonderful students in South San Francisco. Teresa's done a lot of work to really grow the Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day movement and make it what it is today. And I'm always inspired by her passion and her energy around this topic. So big shout out to South San Francisco for getting this started. And also thanks to the Ruby Bridges Foundation for, your work with, supporting Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day and being such great partners. That's it for me. Thank you all so much. I hope you got some great ideas. We will see you all at our next webinar, and keep an eye out for additional resources. We'll be sharing a bunch throughout the next few months leading up to Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. So this is just the beginning, much more from us. Big thank you, Kaylin. You're awesome. I love your project in Tacoma. And yeah, let's see what the next few months bring. And we're excited to celebrate with you in November. So thanks a lot, everyone. Have a great one. There's a survey at the end. Please take our survey, and I will share out the webinar recording and slides in a little bit. Thank you, everybody. Have a nice one. And thanks, Kaylin.